Some children always seem more mature than their peers. They don't make a fuss, rarely cry, and never demand much. While others throw tantrums over candy, these kids have already learned to yield their seat, step back, or simply fade into the background. Teachers say, "He's so sensible." Neighbors remark, "So steady for his age." Parents boast, "Look at him. He never causes us any trouble." These sound like compliments. But behind the praise often lies a quiet compulsion. They are not naturally precocious. They simply learned too early that adults have their own burdens, and they must not become the one who makes everything worse, so they tuck away their emotions. They swallow dissatisfaction, clinginess, fear, and anger. What remains is goodness, but that goodness is heavy. It is not chosen freely. It is instinct, a survival response to chaos, a way to grasp a sliver of control in an unpredictable world. You may have met such a child, always nodding with a smile. When they fail a test, they don't explain, just lower their head and say, "I'll try harder next time." When scolded, they don't cry, instead comforting their mother with "I'm fine." Even when sick, they stay silent to avoid bothering anyone. They are not without pain. They have simply grown accustomed to hiding it where no one can see, because they learn quickly. They master reading faces, avoiding conflict, and shrinking their sense of self until no one can blame them. They never complain that they rarely lose their temper, but inside they are always tense. A constant voice reminds them, "Don't make mistakes, don't burden others, don't make things worse." To the world, they are the perfect child. Good grades, polite, reliable. People even forget they are just children. A child afraid to err. A child afraid to depend. A child always caring for others. And when these children grow up, who do they become? As adults, they grow quieter. They no longer voice their needs easily. They no longer show emotions openly. They rarely reach out first. In groups, they become the steady one. Their plans are always the most thorough. In meetings, they pick up others' messes first. In relationships, they yield first and apologize first. Not because they are never angry, but because they fear conflict more, and abandonment even more. They say, "I'm fine." What they mean is, "I don't want to be your burden." They say, "Whatever works." What they mean is, "I'm used to not being considered." They say, "You choose first." What they mean is, "I don't trust my choices will be respected." From the outside, they seem emotionally stable adults, but only they know that stability is an illusion. It is taught muscles. It is swallowed tears. It is numbness, born of constant self-suppression. They excel at comforting others. They shoulder responsibility without hesitation. When others lean on them, they never refuse. But they themselves have no one to lean on. They rarely ask for help. They rarely show weakness. Even in the closest relationships, they often endure in silence. Because in their experience, emotions are dangerous. Vulnerability invites blame. Dependence is a risk. So they turn every problem into "I need to be better." Just a little more effort, a little more consideration, a little more perfection. Over time, they even convince themselves, "I am someone who doesn't need care. I can always manage alone. I must not worry others." They learn to speak with a smile, even when exhausted inside. They learn to collapse alone at night and show up fine the next day. They learn to lower their voice for a fragment of peace. Even when faced with genuine care, they instinctively step back, not because they don't crave it, but because they no longer know how to receive it. They've grown too used to being the mature one, the one who never fusses, never complains, never demands. But maturity should not come at the cost of survival, nor should it be armor forced upon a child. Some people appear calm and stable. In truth, they are simply living with great effort. We easily mistake these traits for personality. We assume they are naturally introverted, inexpressive, or low maintenance in love. But if you draw close, you see it is a structure, a framework built to survive. In psychology, this is called a coping mechanism. For these children, the coping is control. Suppressing emotions, minimizing presence, training themselves to be the least disruptive existence. Not because they don't want to cry or fuss, but because they learned early. Crying brings no comfort. Fussing invites more blame. In such environments, being good and sensible is the safest path. Sometimes they even have to care for the adults. Coaxing younger siblings, standing between arguing parents, mediating for mom with dad, making excuses for dad's silence to mom. This enters another psychological concept, parentification, role reversal. They never truly got to be children. From the start, they were little adults. Others think they matured early. In reality, they were lonely too soon. Their internal attachment system shifts. A child naturally reaches for a caregiver. If that reach is repeatedly ignored, rejected, or mocked, they learn, I should not reach, I must rely on myself. This is a slow but profound change. Their emotions grow partially numb, expectations of others lower, demands on self rise. They develop a new survival language. If I control myself, I control the situation. If I don't burden others, they won't leave. The more perfect I am, the safer I am. They no longer believe they can be held unconditionally. So they stop expecting it. This structure works, it truly does. They become reliable, mature, responsible, model students, steady team members, family pillars. But it leaves them deeply alone. Because behind all the self-control lies an unmet I want to be loved. They bury this wish so deep that even they forget it. They believe they truly need nothing. No hugs, no comfort, no dependence. But these needs still exist. They have simply learned not to touch them, not because they are gone, but because it hurts too much. So they channel energy into efficiency, contribution, control. This is the safe island they built themselves. Outsiders cannot see it. Even they may not fully realize. They think this is who they are, but it is only protection. A precise, exhausting, loyal protection. You cannot blame a child for teaching themselves to survive in a storm. They did nothing wrong. They had no other choice. This is not a flaw. It was once their gift. There is always a beginning. Not sudden, gradual. But there is a moment when they stop speaking. Perhaps at the dinner table during an argument. Adults shouting. The child sits frozen, small hands clutching a fork, unsure where to look. Then someone snaps, "Can you stop making things worse?" In that instant, they learn silence is safer. Or after a failed exam. Gathering courage to show dad the report card, only to hear, "How did I end up with a son like you?" That night, they cry into their pillow without a sound. Or when seeking comfort, wanting mom to stay while falling asleep, but mom, overwhelmed, says, "I'm already so tired." They turn away and say, "I'll sleep alone," or earlier still. Feverish in bed, whimpering for hours with no response. Finally reaching for water themselves, spilling it. Being scolded. From then on they remember. Even physical pain must stay quiet. No one remembers these fragments, but their body does. Their nervous system does. The equation expression equals danger is etched into their brain. They did not become sensible overnight. It happened layer by layer. Each time they folded away a piece of themselves, they became a little more easy, a little more praised, a little more alone. Some children do not break from one major trauma. They grow up slowly in a series of small, persistent negations. Growth is not joy, it is necessity. No one gave them enough safety. So they built their own logic. I must be good. I must manage alone. I must be sensible, or they won't like me. They believed this logic from a very young age. They became experts at reading moods, memorizing everyone's emotional fluctuations. Knowing when to retreat, when to smile, they grew quieter, less trouble. To adults, they were the worry-free treasure. To teachers, the class role model. Only they knew they were performing every day. Performing as a child without emotions. A child who could face anything alone. A child no one needed to worry about. They performed so long they forgot they could just be a child. Those who learn to be sensible early grow up to be exceptionally self-critical. When someone misspeaks, they first wonder if they were too sensitive. When a relationship falters, they immediately reflect, was I not good enough? When a work mistake happens, they skip explanations and focus only on fixing it. They have a clear internal self-review system. No being too needy, no being too emotional, no disappointing others. These must-nots form their behavioral framework. And the reason they always seem fine, they dare not relax. They dare not slack. They dare not be loved. Because they learned too early. If I fail, others will leave. So they strive, restrain, suppress, becoming the person who needs the least care but the cost. The most immediate is exhaustion, the kind that seeps from the bones. Even when doing nothing, even on vacation, even when life appears perfectly stable, they still feel tired. Because it is the result of lifelong internal oppression. More hidden is the loneliness. Not the absence of people, but the inability to feel safe, depending on anyone. When others approach, they retreat. When asked, they smile and say they're fine. Even when desperate to be understood, they instinctively say, I'm good. This is not pretending to be strong. It is the inability to lower defenses. They are so used to handling everything alone that needing help feels like failure. Their emotional system grows dull, not because they lack feelings, but because they no longer know how to express them. They laugh when nervous, change the subject when sad, swallow anger. They lack true emotional vocabulary. They only know how to say, I'm okay, it's fine, I can handle it. But sometimes they cannot handle it, and no one knows. The cruelest part is that they genuinely appear fine. Orderly life, stable job, polite interactions. But inside lives a child who is never allowed to speak. That child was never caught. No one ever asked, are you actually okay? They just keep growing, folding sadness into habits, wrapping fear in responsibility, turning the urge to cry into determination to keep trying. They become extremely disciplined, but also unable to relax. No one forced them to be this way. They simply believed too early in that logic. If I am good enough, I won't be abandoned. If I never trouble others, I won't be disliked. If I carry enough, the world will stay stable. These beliefs are quiet, but they shape every relationship. In the end, they may no longer know. Who am I really? Am I doing this because I want to, or because I dare not stop? This question is soft and heavy. Have you ever considered that what you call your issues are actually self-protection? You anticipate others' moods, not because you enjoy worrying, but because you learned early that failing to read the room could be disastrous. You smile and say, I'm fine, not because you need no comfort, but because you know voicing needs often goes unanswered. You apologize first, yield first, suppress emotions first in relationships, not because you are naturally compliant, but because you know emotions risk connection. This is not your fault, nor is it weakness. It was the safest way your younger self found to survive. That was not weakness, it was wisdom. Not avoidance, survival. Not emotional impairment, an effort to keep from shattering. You are not afraid to express. You simply went too long without being truly heard. You do not lack need for care. You just grew used to caring for yourself. When you finally see this, there may be a pang of sorrow, because you realize the high-functioning you has been deeply lonely. But please stop blaming yourself. You did nothing wrong. You were just too small at the time. And now that you are beginning to see yourself, this is already the gentlest shift. You can start to relax. Slowly unclench that guarded hand. No need to change overnight. Just willingness to try is already different. You may discover that some people are willing to hold you. When you say, "I'm a bit sad," they won't run. When you say, "I need help," they won't blame you. When you say, "I'm tired," they might even reply, "Let me sit with you while you rest." These things you never had as a child can slowly begin now. It is not about learning to depend on someone. It is about allowing yourself to not always be so strong. You do not live for others, nor exist to stabilize situations. You are allowed your own needs, your own space, your own choices. In this moment, you begin to see that small self, the one forced to mature, to be sensible, to be strong. He is still there. He did nothing wrong. Now you can hold him gently. Healing is not becoming a brand new person, not suddenly outgoing, confident, fearless, not erasing the past or forgetting what was. Healing is more like slowly releasing the habits you once clutched tightly, slowly admitting you get tired too. You want to cry sometimes, you want to be held. You begin allowing yourself to pause. Waking one morning without immediately checking messages. Going a whole day without answering every request and not blaming yourself. Quietly saying, "I don't feel like talking today." You begin learning to say no. To decline relationships that drain you. To admit some things are truly beyond your capacity. You stop pushing so hard. Stop hiding everything behind a smile. Stop using perfection as armor. You begin, just occasionally, to soften. You begin to know that you are loved, not for performing well, but because you are worthy. Always worthy. You also begin to understand that you, who tried so hard, was not inauthentic, just deeply misunderstood for too long. You say to him, "Thank you for carrying us this far." Then softly, "We can slow down now." You begin to reclaim your own rhythm, redefine relational boundaries, rediscover safety not through contrast, but through trust. You find that some people are willing to draw near, even when you are imperfect, even when you are not always smiling. They stay. You learn to forgive yourself, not as falling apart or slacking off, but as finally no longer proving your worth through over-responsibility. You need not always be someone's rock. You deserve to rest your head on a shoulder and sleep deeply. You need not always walk ahead, holding everything up. Sometimes you can slow down and wait for yourself. You have been moving too fast, too sensible too soon, too mature too early, carrying the world alone for too long. Now it is time to look back at that small you. He is still standing there. He never left. Go embrace him and tell him, "You don't have to perform anymore. You have done enough. Let's go home."